What's up guys, it's Pat Kearney. Today we're here in Serum and I'm going to show you how you can make a basic synth, really simple synth using Serum. So let's just get started here. This is a very entry-level tutorial, so in this first one we're not going to be doing a whole lot of stuff here, a whole lot of crazy things. I'm just using the basic preset that you get when you open up Serum. You can initiate that by just going to menu and left clicking and then hitting this right here, initiate preset. And what you start out with here is just a regular sawtooth wave, and this is the sound you get if you have a MIDI keyboard or something and you start playing. It's the standard sound that you get when you open up Serum. So what we're going to do, we're going to go for like kind of that, that super saw-y, future house, future bass kind of synth. And what we're going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the sustain down here in the bottom left corner and just pull that down a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the decay in. And now if you play a chord or note on your MIDI keyboard, you should hear something like this. And we can just grab the release and just open that up just a tiny bit like that. Might actually want to just bring the decay in just a little bit more. And you can play with the sustain, maybe bring that down just a bit more there. So now we're starting to get a little bit of bounce. So next what we can go, right here where it says unison, everything is united, you can left click and you can drag up or down and you can add voices. And this is just how many times that the saw is being played, how many voices of the saw there are. Here we just have one voice. And if you see that I drag this up to 16, you can hear the difference. Now the saw is being played 16 times. So I'm actually going to leave it on 16 there to start. And I'm going to go over here to where it says filter, and I'm going to left click and enable this filter. And now when I play it, you can hear that. Now in Serum, you can essentially drag anything onto anything else. And we're going to keep it simple for this tutorial, so I'm not going to go too into depth explaining why, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab this envelope 1 down here, left click and hold, and just drag it right onto the cutoff. And now you'll see there's this blue ring that appears around the cutoff. And now if I play, so what it's doing is it's taking the attack that we have here, the attack, the hold, the decay, and the sustain, the release, the entire envelope here, and it's applying it to the cutoff. And if we move this cutoff, we're going to start getting some different sounds. So you can just experiment and maybe bring this all the way up here. So now we're getting kind of more of that synth sound, with it up here. And if you want to, and at any point you can just left click and turn the filter off. Then you're left with that very big, open, kind of almost like, there's not that much sustain on here, but like a sustained sound compared to when you have the filter on. So, and then from here, what you can do is you can, with the filter on, because before we were playing with the, our attack, hold, decay, and sustain and release with the filter off. Now with the filter on, we can go back into our envelope 1 down here, and we can further adjust these hold and decay and sustain times. Mainly, we're going to be focused on the decay and the sustain here. So let's just play a couple chords here, a couple notes. So I might want to bring the decay out just a little bit, just not quite to 1 second, but just maybe bring that back just a hair. And this is all up to you, whatever sound you're going for. You can adjust the decay and sustain to your liking. But so what we can do now, I'm happy with that, is I'm going to left click on oscillator B. And this is going to enable another sawtooth wave here for me. And if you notice, the first one we have has 16 voices playing. C creates multiple voices for oscillator A on a single MIDI note. So I'm actually going to drag this one up to 8. So half of the first one, which is 16. You can hear if I turn off oscillator B. A little bit drier and weaker, and with oscillator B turned on, it's very full, and it's starting to sound like a synth, like something that we want, almost like a lead. So we can go ahead and I'm going to detune this here just slightly give it a little bit of movement. That actually might even be too far. I'll dial that back just a little bit. Give it more of that analog sound. Something like that's not too bad. Okay, so now that we have oscillator A and oscillator B enabled, and we have a couple settings tweaked here, not that we're necessarily going to use it in this tutorial, but I think it's important to note that under the filter section here, you can see that A is highlighted. If I turn off oscillator B, play a chord, if I go back to my filter and uncheck A, the filter is no longer being applied. So if I recheck A, and then if I turn on oscillator B and check A, left click B, now the filter is being applied to both oscillator A and oscillator B. And there's this N and S down here, which is for noise and sub. We're not going to get into that in this tutorial. Like I said, we're keeping this very entry level. So for now I'm going to uncheck B. I just thought it was worth noting. So here's what we have so far. So we're getting some cool sounds happening here. What we can do is up here you'll see there's these 4 options. There's oscillators, effects, matrix, and global. We're going to stick within these 2 for this tutorial, oscillator and effects. So we can actually go ahead and left click on effects here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some reverb by just left clicking on the reverb, and this is what we get. Feel free to mess with these controls. I'm going to leave the reverb on the default reverb for now. I'm also going to add a little bit of delay. It's cool, but that's kind of a lot of delay, so I'm actually just going to dial back in the mix down to like 11%. And you can also grab, right here, you can grab these and kind of just pull the reverb in, filter the delay. So something like that's pretty cool. And there's hyperdimension. You can left click hyperdimension. Now you want to be careful with hyperdimension because essentially the hyperdimension is just adding more voices that are detuned. And if you go back to the oscillators here, you can see we already have quite a bit of voices here. We have 16 on oscillator A and 8 on oscillator B. So you can left click and drag on the mix here. And that just filters how much of the effect is brought into the mix. So I'm content with leaving it, right about there. We have distortion, we have flanger, phaser, chorus, a bunch of other effects. For now, I'm just going to go on distortion, and I'm going to left click, and I'm going to hit soft clip. And I'm kind of using this more as a saturation rather than a distortion. Maybe turn the drive up a bit. It's a little much. Kind of around 53% works for me. I'll left click and go back into the oscillators here. And for this synth sound, we're pretty much getting to where we need to be. You can always play with the drive here. A lot of people kind of underestimate this drive and fat knob down here. I mean, if you turn the drive up even just a little bit and the fatness up, can really enhance your sound a lot. Even that's a little much, maybe more just like 11%. Pretty happy with that. All right, so here's what we have. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something from it. Again, this is an entry-level tutorial. We're going to get more advanced. In the next tutorials, we're going to be making basses, plucks, keys, things like that. And everything that I show you in these tutorials are just kind of like the steps. You can tweak the parameters. Like, for example, I could totally grab this decay and just pull it way out. And so I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. Feel free to give it a like if you felt like you took something away from it. And I really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.